Welcome to the podcast this morning. Welcome to WestCoastCast. And I'm very excited for my guest today, Bowe Balhoff. And she is an incredible person. We're going to hear her story today. And but she's an incredible person of peace. And Bowe, it's a pleasure to have you on our program today.
Yeah, thanks.
Man.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're a really multi-talented person. It's so funny because, you know, I'm a little bit shell-shocked as you're here. Pardon the pun.
No.
But you're an author, you're an educator, you're a former pilot and veteran. And so we're going to learn a lot about your story and just the work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
But you've really done some incredible things locally. And I mean, Rotary, Storehouse, grant writing. I mean, you are so multi-talented. And we're kind of from the same neck of the woods because you're originally from Arkansas.
I am. Yeah, that's right. I am. It feels like forever ago, but yep, I feel like, yeah, I just keep turning the pages of this chapters of my book and just keep saying yes. Just keep saying yes to the next thing. So, yep, I think it just keeps adding up. It feels like a lot when you say it like that.
Wow. Yeah, you have really come, you know, a long, long way from Arkansas all the way to just the globe. And I want to say what a gift you are, you know, for peace. And it's funny because when other people say that, it's like, well, that's not me, but that is you. And it's incredible to have you on our program today and to really hear your story and to hear your story of peace. And so I made some notes here. So today you're joining us. You're a former naval helicopter pilot. Mm-hmm. You're a mom. You're a children's author, book author, a Rotary leader, an activist who sits basically at the intersection of war and peace. Mm-hmm. Man, that's been you. You have just come full circle. And so we're going to talk about, you know, what your military service has taught you about humanity. And how some of the organizations that you're with, like Rotary International, how that's kind of helped shape some of that role for peace building and your role in faith and biblical teaching, reconciliation, and why storytelling and activism has been an important part of your life and in shaping the next generation. That's a big plate, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's not. Easy. Let's do it.
Man.
No, I'm just kidding. I saw these. These are incredibly hard. They're deep. Let's go.
Yeah, they are. The questions
are.
The questions are deep, but it's very exciting to have you in this program. And I found out your undergraduate is in political science.
Mm-hmm. And then my graduate is in sustainable international development and global health, which is a mouthful, but it really is. It's tied to political science. It's the same kind of base, root, foundational, socioeconomical challenges, stuff like that. So.
We share undergraduates too, in political science. Mine's European focus, and yours is actually the Middle East.
Yep, it is Middle East, yep.
Wow, incredible stuff. Well, let's get started. Maybe you'll share just a little bit about, you know, your journey and just a little bit about your day as we get to know you, and then we'll just kind of dive into the questions. And so, again, we want to welcome you to the podcast, and want to welcome Bowe. She is incredible.
All right. So. Do you want me to talk a little bit about myself?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So, originally from Arkansas, literally the country backwoods. My name is Bowe because my dad's a bow hunter. My dad is a game warden. My mom worked for the school district, so very small town. And I just knew I wanted to do big things. I wanted to have big impact. That was because I was a fantasy book reader. I love to read, and that's my escape, was to read voraciously. And when I read those books, those characters, those amazing, fantastical characters, they always were small town people just like me, and they went and they did big, impactful, crazy, cool things. And I wanted to be just like them. And so the military offered me that chance to get out of the small town and go do something really big and impactful. That will come full circle to that, I'm sure, in our questions. And so I did that. I went to the Naval Academy, and when I graduated, I became a helicopter pilot. Or I became a pilot, and you get kind of like you're sorting houses from Harry Potter. You get chosen into what you fly, and I got chosen to be a helicopter pilot. And I did that for a little while, and I also taught at Texas A&M University for about 3 years. Went back. I was on an aircraft carrier as a strike operations officer. And then I knew my time in the Navy was coming to a close. I really did know I wanted to do something more in the humanitarian effort. And we moved. I married my husband. We had our first child, Atlin. He's amazing. And we moved here to Washington. I joined the Navy Reserves. That my unit was in Hawaii for crisis action team, the regional operations center there to do like hurricane action response. And I also tried the corporate gig. That was really difficult. Really wasn't a good transition. But I wanted to do as much community service as possible because that's where my heart is. That's where my passion's at. So I joined Rotary, worked with the food bank, tried to get involved with grant writing, do as much as I can there. And this is where it pretty much led me to this community here in Covington, where we are now. And then we had another child, Ayla, and that's where we are. That's how I got to where I am right now. So it seems like a lot kind of like jam-packed right there. But that's who I am.
Wow, that's incredible. Such a pleasure to work with you in the community. And it's so funny because when people engage you, they really don't know your story. And you're so low-key about it. But as people get to know you and know your story, it's absolutely fantastic. Incredible the journey that you're not only have been on, but you're on right now.
Yep.
Wow. Waiting for the next. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Wrote a couple books in there, too. Loved. Yep. So, yeah, forgot about that. Yeah. Love to write. I'm an author.
Man.
An artist.
In your free time, you just wrote a couple of books, and I want to say that's incredible.
Yep.
Wow. That's my struggle, actually, is writing.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, man, that's incredible because writing is something that once you put it down on paper and once you publish, it's gone. It's out there, you know.
Yes.
And that is daunting in a lot of ways. But writing is a really beautiful thing to do because you take a story and you take an idea and now you've published it and you've shared it. You've shared something of your heart, your thoughts, and it tells a story, maybe about you somewhat, but it shares a story and a narrative. It's a beautiful thing.
Yep. I am very close to publishing my first novel, and it'll be one of a trilogy. But yes, I am. It started in 2020 on my first deployment, and it has been a journey to get it to where it is now. And I'm holding close to it, but I'm very close to getting ready to just push it out the door and let the world have it. And it is, yeah, just like you said, very much a beautiful thing. But once it's out there for the world to see and to ruminate on and to give me their feedback.
That is my biggest fear. I've done a lot of writing, but I've not written a book. And so I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I would really like to write. But it is so time-consuming. The process is time-consuming.
It's amazing. But yeah, that's been the learning curve has been really, really steep. But now that I've learned it, it is, I won't have to do that again. I won't have to learn that again. But it is humbling, massively humbling. The editing process, the feedback. But it's just made me better. And it has not made me, I still love writing even more. When I sit down to write, I just know it's what my heart sings. It's like when I do art, I like to paint. That's when my heart sings. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've done some crazy cool things. I've been all over the world. I've done things that make you like scream with excitement. And you're with your buddies and your friends, and you're doing some crazy cool things. But nothing. When I paint, I do art, and when I write, my heart sings. Even though it's daunting, these tasks are it's scary to release your writing to the world. My heart still sings when I write. So yeah, that's how I know I'm doing the right thing.
I remember when I first heard a piece of your story, about your days in the Navy and flying, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. I've got to know more. And then I heard your story and saw some of the video, just from flying from the time. And I was like, wow, that is absolutely incredible. It was really something to see.
Yeah. When I look back and I see what I was flying, that is crazy to look at what we did.
Flying by the seat of your pants or by your flight suit. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Well, let's dive into the questions. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
So here's kind of our first question. It's really related to war, peacemaking, Rotary activism, and faith. And so it's funny, in our journey together, we've not really talked a lot about your faith, and I know you are a person of faith. And I can just not only see that in what you do in the community, but how you do it and why. And so our first question is kind of related to that, and that is, as a naval helicopter pilot, how did you train for conflict, and how did that experience ultimately shape your commitment to peacemaking?
I think this isn't going to be surprising to you and probably anyone that has some age on them, some wrinkles in their eyes. But it's training for conflict, and when I was training, I didn't think about peace. That wasn't something that I was thinking about, even though I studied for it, and you can read about it, and you can it can innately be a part of your foundation, but it isn't, and it can even be part of who you are. I wasn't a conflict person. I would be someone that wouldn't. I'm not a violent person. I'm inherently a diplomat, a peacemaker by nature. But I went to the Naval Academy. When I was training as a helicopter pilot, you really do not see the big picture from the lens that you are when you're sitting in the seat of the helicopter. As a junior naval officer, even as a student of the Naval Academy, you only see from the scope of where you're sitting. And it takes you going through all of it and being on the other side to really look back and understand the conflict that you were being trained for, all of the experiences, to really like ruminate on them, and then to look back and understand how you were being utilized, what the conflict really meant that you were in, and then the peace that was happening and could have been happening around it. Maybe with the other options that could have been happening. You really are just narrowed in your scope for your job. I was a helicopter pilot. My job, we had multiple things, mission sets as a helicopter pilot. Was I saving lives as a medevac pilot? Was I doing search and rescue? Was I helping a special operations team? Was I protecting a ship? Was I moving cargo, people, parts? Those specific things. I was very narrowed and very focused in. It took me years flying and becoming an aircraft commander, then later on a senior naval officer, to really understand more so the bigger picture. And then as a veteran, looking back and understanding, like you said at the end of the question, it shaped my commitment to peacemaking. It took that reflection on that training that I had to understand that the people that are there now, sitting in the pilot seat, they really are doing their job that they're trained to do. They don't have the full picture, most likely. Their scope is as big as flying the helicopter and protecting the ship, delivering the pallets and the cargo, roping the seals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of times when we come into the military, we're young.
Very young.
And so we might have gone to school, we might have some perspective, but the scope is so massive that you're just trying to find your piece, what it is that you're responsible for. And so you do, as you describe, you wear a different lens. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that come in to serve, as you've discussed before, they don't have a perspective that, they don't have a big perspective, a broad perspective. And I learned in political sciences, as you did as well, that in the military, you have a role to play and you see yourself in that role. But in many ways, in peacekeeping, the military really in many ways can be the strong arm of foreign policy. Mm. And that's how we keep the peace. And it's a different narrative, but it's not, we don't have the broad perspective, nor do we think about it in that way. We're busy doing our jobs and our responsibilities, taking care of people, the people we're responsible to, and really looking at the safeguards of the country or those who are appointed above us. And that can be pretty incredible. We're not necessarily thinking about the role of peacekeeping globally, as you so well defined.
Right. We did do a lot of joint operations. We had a lot of partner nations that we were working with. I think that was probably my first entry into getting along and trying to be friendly with other nations. I think that's one of the things I reflect on a lot is the Navy, the military gave me. I was 26 years old, sitting down in Qatar, across from like 5 different foreign militaries planning a joint operations at 26. Like
It's a lot of responsibility.
that's a lot of responsibility that I wouldn't have gotten very rarely anywhere else, and that opportunity alone was, it's immense, and that's it. And I don't take it for granted. I love that I got that opportunity. So I think it has something that has value. It has a lot of weight to it. But there's still looking back at what was going on and some of the purpose behind some of the joint missions that I was doing, that I can't really talk about, but it was double. There's 2 sides to that coin. But I still learned. It was still an educational piece to that. So.
Well, history really teaches us that soldiers and combatants are the best peacekeepers because they understand the price of war. Mm-hmm. And that's a really tough lesson to learn. And I know that you know that lesson very well.
Yeah.
So my next question is kind of related to that. And what does the reality of war teach that civilians often misunderstand? Because you've been into a different reality that most people have no idea. I should say no idea about. They just see it on the news, in movies, but you've lived it.
I think we touched on it a little bit, but we see this swing right and like back and forth between like we had the Vietnam War where people weren't very patriotic about it. There was a lot of push and pull on if it was the right thing to do or wrong thing to do. It was a long war. The soldiers came home. Some didn't get it. There wasn't a lot of thankfulness for it because there was a draft. That's a very hairy war. Then now we have this war or the current status and people of our nation's military, and people are very thankful, and we get a lot of discounts, and we have parking spaces for veterans, and I get thanked for my service everywhere I go. So people, I think, nowadays look at us as civilians, and they're very thankful, and they're very aware for the patriotic nationalism that's going on. But the reality, if you are over there, I say over there, I think we all know, the Middle East, because that's where most of us have been when we're in a conflict. It goes right back down to that scope of you're talking about an 18-year-old to 22-year-old that most likely joined not out of patriotism, not out of nationalism, not out of some sort of desire to serve. Yes, that is like 1 out of 10. I don't know, I'm making up a statistic, but it's not saying it's absent. I'm saying it's there, but most of the time their scope is small. They're there because they have to be for education, for poverty, for just to get out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
And they're just doing a job, and sometimes they're scared. Sometimes they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And then something scary happens, and they are dealing with trauma, and they have to come home eventually. Hopefully they make it home, and then they have to deal with that trauma. They are still your sons and daughters. They are still the 18 to 22-year-old, and then they have a full life ahead of them, right? So I think the reality of war, what does it teach that civilians don't understand? It's not that it's like gatekeeping. I want civilians to understand it, but it's more so just like we are here. Everybody should keep their minds open, because there are families and civilians right now that are living war, and they didn't ask for it. They didn't sign up to go to war. War is in their home. It is bombs dropping on their houses and their groceries and their schools. So they're living war too. So we, the people that sign up to go to war, they're dealing with those traumas and those question marks too. And they are also just as they could be also just as impressionable, and even though they signed up for it, doesn't mean that they also went into it as, G.I. Joe soldier. They could just be Sarah that graduated high school 3 months ago. That's a cook on a aircraft carrier who's just doing her best, and she's trying to deal with it. I think that's the reality that I wish that we could kind of convey to everyone, that we're just people, we're just humans, and we're all dealing with a situation that we don't always understand the humanity of it.
I think oftentimes, as Americans, we have a civics class kind of view of patriotism, not realizing that, freedom has a price and that there are people that are going to pay that price. And then they're going to come back, and they're going to come back a little different, changed by the conflict. And
Right.
it's amazing. And I know that you've talked to lots of veterans, and you've gone through the process yourself.
You can say still going through it, yeah.
Still going
Probably.
through it.
Yeah, I don't know if it ever completes, but yep.
Wow, that was incredible. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about how do they uniquely contribute to the conversations of peace?
I think there's so I used to teach at Texas A&M NROTC, and I used to teach the freshmen, and they're coming in with a lot of excitement and a lot of energy to go out and do and serve. Those are the ones that are really signing up, right? They're the ones that are like, hire me. I'm ready to give me a gun.
You
strap it
were
to
at
my
Texas
back.
A&M, so
No, I know. Yeah.
yeah, that's already pretty
Right?
hardcore.
That's what I'm saying. It's like they're like, maybe a Marine. Go put me, put a gun on my back. I'm ready to just put some mud on my face. Right. And I'm just like, okay, slow down. Right. Let's learn some things first. Let's learn some history. Let's learn about, And then the thing is, like, I want to teach them about the culture and everything they're about to go into. And some appreciation, some respect, some love. Anyway, so that's the part that you can't. The veteran uniquely contributes to the conversation about peace, is because once you've been there and you've learned it, that's the one thing that I absolutely loved about learning about the Middle Eastern culture, was that I gained so much knowledge and respect, and they're rich in history. It's vast. It's so intriguing. There's so much there. And when I went over there and I got to see it all for myself, I got to shop with them and explore their history and go to their mosques and learn even more firsthand, and then just be a part of their culture. And then I got to serve there, and then I got to come home to realize that to go there and to be at war, the goal isn't to be at war. The goal is to be at peace. And then to come back and you see the greens, the young ones that are coming up that are ready to go fight, and then you just try to navigate them a little bit better and to mold them and to hopefully not stymie their energy, but to just basically help shape them into understanding earlier on that it isn't about going to war, it's about going to peace. And I know that sounds very boring to them, but just to shape the way they go into the conversation is better, I think, that way, when that there's something there to respect, not to destroy. Because I think they get a lot from movies and a lot of social media, that there's something to go destroy. And instead, if you're a veteran, you've been there, you've seen the horrors, you've seen what can happen that's really bad, you lose friends, and you just kind of want to impart to them some of the peace before it gets really bad.
Wow. It's a cliche, but peace is always a better option than war and conflict.
They're going to experience it.
Yeah.
You can't stop them, especially those that go into naval aviation. They always say, look to your left, look to your right. One of you is going to die. And it's true. I've lost so many. You cannot shield them from experiencing grief and loss. They will experience it. So Sorry, that took like a deep, dark left turn. But
No, that's it's very accurate.
right. So I think telling them like, don't go looking for it. It's gonna find you anyway. So if you're gonna serve and you're going to go into there, like the best way to go about it is go into it, looking for peace. Go into it with that mindset. That's the best way to do it. Don't go in there looking for hatred, because we have a good way. We have a really, and on this side of the pond, we've set up ourselves to look at other cultures with a lot of hate, a lot of discuss, a lot of let's find the differences instead of let's find the love, let's find the humanity, let's find the similarities. I think I told you a story before. One of the first things I did was go to the supermarket and saw a woman that was in like full burqa, like she was, and I was like, there's so much difference. And then all of a sudden, her kid ran up to her and like she scooped them up and like put them on her hip. And I was just like, that was such the most similar motherly thing ever that I saw. And I do the same thing with my child. And I was like, there's a mom, I'm a mom. We're moms. Like I can't see her. She can't, like, we are differently dressed, but or in the grocery store and she just put her glasses on, she was looking at her list and I was like, oh, I do the same thing. We're shopping, we're looking for groceries, we're in the exact same, we just look different. But we're doing the exact same woman things. I mean, just the connections there. So go looking for the humanity. You just got to live it. That's the veteran in you, is just the lived experience, the connection, looking for the humanity instead of looking for the destruction.
That's such a beautiful picture of humanity, and underneath it all, we're human after all. That's incredible.
We're human after all. Yep.
Wow. So I'm going to kind of take a little turn and really talk about maybe something that Solomon said in Ecclesiastes. Mm-hmm. There's a time for war and a time for peace. How do you personally navigate that tension? Because that is a lot of tension, war and peace.
I guess we nowadays have an amazing ability to track and see. Being a teacher, you said you used to teach history. I used to teach history too, naval history. And we can see and nitpick everything for causation of war. And nowadays we know that most of the time the reasons we go to war are not good reasons to go to war, right? And mostly big men posturing, right? And then using little people, and I say little people, I just mean like average people, for war, for their purposes of greed and power grabs. So I'm not saying, I don't know, Bible days, completely different, but today days, it's easy to see that a lot of the things that we're doing nowadays, I just don't think we chase after peace as much as we do for power and for greed and for other things. So it's hard for me to see a time for war when I don't think we give them enough time for peace. Or at least the due diligence for that. So, especially when we can look at history and see how much we just lean into war. Give me a good reason for war and the body count. I don't think that I'd ever see it or find it. You know what I mean? I would have a hard time finding that today's age, where I would for the bodies and the death, when you see it, and it'd be a really hard time for me to be able to accept it nowadays.
Death is such a hard factor of war, and it's
right.
The reality of war that innocents are casualties, combatants are casualties, and the price of combat is extremely high, and the trauma to children, to families, on either side of the conflict is amazing. And when I look at battles, the great wars, World War I and World War II, one of the things I noticed about World War II was, regardless of the movies, there was really nothing romantic about it. People lost their children. We won the world in so many ways. I guess that is a romantic view. And honestly, the regimes that we fought were brutally evil.
Yep.
And so I would say, the term just war is a term that we use, but I want to say it's a little bit more shadowy today when we look at those things. World War I, the same way. There's a lot of story and narrative that goes with how we tell it from our perspective. But when we look at other kinds of conflicts, and I was just recently in the Middle East myself, in the Gaza envelope, just right after the ceasefire, and it reminded me of my own time, in the Middle East and fighting wars and conflicts there. But the amount of death is really overwhelming. It's tangible. You can feel it. The ground shakes, and cities are obliterated, and people have died there. And the terror of war it's not something you can shake easily if you've experienced it. Sometimes there's a reason for war and just wars, and that I want to say every nation that engages in combat or war should be very clear about how they conduct that, how they engage other people's lives. It should be for nobler causes. It's hard to talk about war and humanity in the same breath, but it should be for nobler causes other than maybe, economic stability or for some of the other reasons why we engage in wars or conflicts today. And I would say as a soldier, I don't mean to add more commentary, but as a person that has seen a lot of conflict yourself, these are the things that we think about in the quiet times, before, chaos ensues and we're headlong into a conflict and we're trying to save people's lives.
Yeah. I just think it's like if we thought about how much we think about things and but this is costing us $1 billion a day, or this war is costing us $1 billion a day, and I think it should be said like this is costing us 200 children's lives a day, or so, like in lives and bodies and futures, and this, and just because it's not an American life or it might be another nationality's life, it's still human life. If you think about and you look at the number of lives lost in World War I and World War II, it's just insane, the numbers of lives and how many future generations weren't born or don't exist because of that. And the scarred lands, like those lands are now like scarred because of those battlefields. And then the graveyards of the ships that sunk. So it's the same thing's happening right now in Gaza in the Middle East. So I think just the way that we think about war and the justification, we think of it in warheads and like in money and stability and economic stability, like you said. And these are all, how does it affect my life here? And to me, it's got to face, these are real lives that are happening, being affected there, and it's just at what cost, and does it need bombs dropped on actual lives that shouldn't be involved, right? It should be, we have rules of warfare for a reason. So I think if we really did say, like, start weighing it instead of money, lives, when is it worth your son and daughter's life? Bring those mamas and daddies up front and say, yep, I sacrificed my child's life for this cause. Now times 1,000. I sacrificed 2,000 little children over here. That's worth it. if we as a world are okay, then saying this war cost us, instead of replacing $200 billion, we now say X number of children's lives. If we're okay with that, then we've lost our humanity.
Well said. Jesus said something that was interesting in Matthew 5:9, and I've spoke about it several times where he spoke it from the Galilee, and blessed are the peacemakers.
Yep.
And so, candidly, how does peacemaking for you actually look in modern life? And you have been such a beautiful example of what peace after conflict looks like.
What does it look like in modern life? I think it could look differently for everybody. For me, it was leaving the service and joining Rotary International, and being involved in my community, and getting involved with Elena's projects and trying to do, which is a Rotarian of ours, and then getting involved with my with the food bank, and there's a couple different projects that we have going on. Harvest Against Hunger. Peacemaking is renewing our hope in humanity and the people that we see in our community, and even our little ones and our young ones, my children, and even in the book that I'm writing, or I wrote, it's renewing the hope in humanity, and even on social media and how we engage with people. Peacemaking is reviving the human in us, and how we interact with other humans. So, to me, I think that's your average human. I think it's getting involved with your community, and reviving and renewing how humans interact and see each other. But yeah, myself, Rotary. That's how I ended up. The first step was getting involved with Rotary, and then from there, it really does shoot you into a bunch of different projects.
We're going to talk more about Rotary, and it's such an amazing peace organization. Mm-hmm. How has your faith and service, how has it intersected in your life? How has it given you strength, maybe in some very difficult moments? And they say that warfighting is long periods of boredom and training with some very intense moments of conflict. And how has your faith helped impact how you navigate those things? Because there's clearly decisions that you're going to make both in a spiritual way, a faith way, in a way that is going to impact people's lives for the rest of their lives.
I'm still alive. And there are times where I thought I wasn't. I thought I was going to die. And I think that was probably, I can't say that I thought my ticker was, my time was coming out. It was like one of those sand time turners. It was not a matter, like I said, of when, or it was just, or it's not if, it was when something bad was going to happen. It's innately of flying helicopters.
That's always a real world. You can go up even without combat and not come back down.
Yes. But helicopter, there's so many moving parts, and when you just look up there, and there's so many buttons, and there's so many switches, and there's just so many things that can go wrong. And at one point, you just become a flying rock when everything just goes wrong. So, and then that's just the helicopter itself. So then we put ourselves in harm's way, and then you're doing all these other things. So it's just, there was so many times where it just could have gone wrong, and it did go wrong for some of my friends. And my faith was just a lot of prayer, a lot of promises, just get me through this. And then a lot of thank yous and just get me through this. I think at one time I was flying in the Scottish Hebrides, near there, and it was my birthday, and it was such a bad landing. The sea state was super bad. And I was just trying to land on the back of this ship, and it was at night, of course, and my leg was shaking so bad that it was physically shaking so bad. And it's my birthday. And I was just like, I can't die on my birthday. I'm going to be one of those headstones that has like my birthday on the, like it's October 7th to October 7th. That's like this, and someone's going to be like, that was weird. But I couldn't. And so I just remember praying so hard that please don't let me die on my birthday. But when I landed, I got out and I like kissed the deck of the ship, but I looked up and then there was the Aurora Borealis. And I was just like, thank you. That was a really pretty birthday present.
Man, thank you, Jesus.
Yes, it was just like, I think
that's a stress that most of us have no idea what that's about.
Yeah, it's just like a different level. But I was on goggles, MVGs, and you can see the Aurora Borealis really pretty through goggles. So I think there's just moments where you're just really close to death and potential death, and I think it's really just immediate faith right there. Just like, please just get me through these moments. Sometimes it's my own actions, of me flying, and sometimes it's just my helicopter is breaking, and I just need it to get me. Please don't let it fall out of the sky. Please just get me to a safe landing, and it did more than one time. So I think that's where directly my faith through flying.
That's incredible. You're going to have to come and just talk to us about flying in combat. And that's an incredible story, because equipment failure and just things that can go wrong, they're probably the biggest killers of pilots. And I had a relative who was a helicopter pilot. It was my father-in-law, and he flew 53s and 47s. Mm. And rattle traps, death traps. I almost died myself on a 53.
Yes.
And and you know why.
Yep. If it's not leaking, something's wrong.
Something's wrong. And, and it's a lot of aircraft, because it's 100 feet long from rotor tip to rotor tip. And, and that's a lot of space you've got to feel that space, how big your rotors are, where you can land, the tolerance of the aircraft, because, they say the sea is unforgiving, but the air is so much so.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. And then land on the sea.
Land on a flight deck.
Yeah, or just like a small destroyer. Yep. Mm.
Yeah, you're the real thing. You're the real pilot.
It's crazy.
Well, so let me ask this question. In a polarized world, how do you help people maybe disagree, maybe with your point of view or perspective, without polarizing them, but with keeping them feeling human? How do you handle disagreement with people because obviously, our views and your perspective is going to be polarizing, and we just look at our narrative, in our own nation, people will be polarized about anything, and they can be experts on the subject but never have the experiences that you do. How do you navigate that and still allow your humanity to come forward?
I think the one thing that my experience has really allowed me to understand is the base human nature. When you are threatened with your life, you really do sink to the base of your human nature, which is protect yourself, protect your family, and you kind of become animalistic. You're going to do anything you can to to stay alive. It doesn't matter who's coming at you. You start to do things that are unrecognizable behavior. And you start to say things that are not characteristic of yourself. So I think while we are polarized now, I think there's potentially a false narrative that we are threatened when we are not. My own parents, I think, are in the state of that they might feel threatened, and they are not. So I think that's making people to see other people as enemies, and we are not. I hope that made sense.
That's so clear-eyed.
Right.
Yeah.
So to kind of lower the barriers and bring back that critical thinking to and empathy for that, to see each other as humans, to realize what's happening up here is that innate naturistic feeling of lashing out to protect oneself in one ways of life, of everything about you, to be really responsive, to put up your guard, and is not your normal way of being. It's not your normal compassionate thought, your Christian way of being. And that right there, if you understand what's happening, then maybe you can deconstruct it and say, that's not my normal way of thinking. I wouldn't naturally be aggressive towards other human beings just because they're different, or they look different, or they think differently. So your way of thinking and your way of life and your way of your religion or whatever is not under attack. So I think the polarization might be not as bad as we think. It can be, maybe we lower that. Maybe we stop calling it as polarized. Maybe we take the polarization down, and we say you're actually, because if you've ever been under attack, you know what I'm saying. If your life is actually under threat, you do start. For example, if someone were to come after me and my children, I'm gonna protect them with everything I've got, and all of a sudden I will kill. That sounds really bad, but I will do anything to protect my children.
Sure,
I will
certainly.
I will mama bear them. I will do things that are uncharacteristic of me. We need to do that to our nation. We need to do that for our families. We need to do it for our friends. We need to lower the barrier and say, we're not under attack. We're not polarized. We need to refine the human in us. We need to refine the human in other people. Because that is, if you're a person of faith, that is Christ-like. We take care of each other.
So that kind of walks me into my next question for you, Bowe, and that is, how do you live in a world of forgiveness when, I want to say, forgiveness is really a tough issue? How do you treat people as human, forgive them, even though there may be issues, things that have happened? How do you forgive?
One of my favorite initiatives I ever read about was of Israeli and Palestinian mothers that got together, and their sons and daughters were killed.
I've worked with some of those families.
If they can do it, right, then they understand the cycle of violence. They understand that the massive loss that can happen with violence. So when we're talking about forgiveness, you have to understand what's at stake, right? So this whole conversation we've been having, Rod, is about war and conflict. Are we talking about, like, what are we mad at here? Like, if those people have lost their babies to the cycle of violence, and those mamas can come together and understand what the cycle of violence has done, then we can do it too. So I think it's really just coming. I know this is like a kumbaya moment of getting around. No, it is really getting together and understanding that it doesn't end unless we take actionable steps to make it end, and we understand what it is, and it comes with that purposeful forgiveness and saying, I'm going to be the stop. I'm going to stop. I'm not going to let it affect my day. I'm not going to let it continue. I am the mom of a 4-year-old who has 18 million tantrums a day. And I'm constantly telling him, you get to use your choices. You get to choose how you feel about how you go about your day. It's the same. We're big tantrum grown-up. We're grown-ups that have tantrums.
Yeah.
We get to choose these choices. This is our headspace. Forgiveness is a choice. We get to step into it. Now, it doesn't mean our heart doesn't hurt, that we don't feel those real feelings that are ways, and like I said, we have to continue to be like, bring that polarization down, bring those attacks down. I'm not under attack. I can still do my things. But forgiveness is a choice.
That is so well said. It is a choice, and I think a lot of times that people are excited to share what they know or they hear, or even in people in conflict. And the Israeli-Palestinian mothers coming together and deciding, that's it. I can't hold this hate. I can't go on. I've lost people. I've lost my children, and I've watched it happen, but I cannot go on in hate. They made some clear choices, and hearing the story of the other, understanding what their pain was too and their loss. Forgiveness it's an incredible gift. And I think it's maybe the last thing that many people think about, that forgiveness, it's a release for you too. Mm-hmm. It's human, and it seems like it's unbelievable in its ability, when you make the choice to forgive, its ability to help you heal and to process. And really some of the worst things that can happen, that it can be freeing for the person. That's, 8 years ago, I started to take the peace journeys myself, and learning about the conflict and conflict resolution from an Israeli-Palestinian perspective was eye-opening for me. And it's actually still there, although we don't see much of it today. That dialogue and that narrative is still there.
I bet it's tough.
It's tough, yeah.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you some questions about Rotary. And honestly, believe it or not, Bowe, we're in the waning moments of our podcast.
I know.
And
I'm sorry about it.
No worries.
Soapbox.
I wanted to talk to you about your service to Rotary and really how you got involved and your peacemaking in Rotary.
I'd love to do more. I got involved with Rotary because I was volunteering at a food bank, the storehouse. And the director at the time, Jennifer Liggett, she asked me if I want to be a Rotarian. And I said I'm a Libra. I know it's a joke. I didn't know what Rotarian was. I had never heard it. She asked me if I was a Rotarian. I just remember being like, I don't know what that is. It sounded foreign to me. She's like, you got to come, you got to see. And I just went to a couple meetings. And when I left military service, I had the master's degree in international service. I wanted to do humanitarian work. I had a really hard time finding a career in international service, and that's what I wanted to do. And I used a veterans career service to try to get a job, and I got a job in a corporate world. It didn't really quite sit right, but I knew I needed to continue to try to find the ability to do volunteer work and to do community service. And so Rotary filled that need to give back and to get involved. And this was perfect. So I found a group of people who just for some reason get together, sit around a table, and literally that's all we do is we talk about how to give back, to get involved, to raise money and fund needs within the community and the world. And I was just blown away by this concept.
Wow.
To find like-minded people like this, and then there's a bunch of others around the United States and the world that all do the exact same thing and all are rooted in the same principles and values. I was like, sign me up.
So if you could give us one thing that we could be thinking about past this podcast, if you give us one thing about peacemaking, what would that be, Bowe?
I thought about this. The one thing I think specifically here that you don't have to change who you are, or that you have to give up any kind of ideas, or that you have to negotiate. A lot of people think I'm a negotiator, that I have to. The peacemaker means that you come to the table and that you're there to negotiate. That's true and like real deal, but like if you were like, yeah, we're gonna sit here and do a negotiation between the United States and Iran and Israel, like that, yes, that, but for the peacemaker in you, and yourself, you don't have to give up your ideals and your core beliefs. I think if anything, hold stronger to them, Like that's, if anything, I've found in my 37 years, which some of you may laugh at that, but for me, that feels old. I have just more strongly held to my convictions of who I am. If anything, the book that I wrote to you is just, it's about seeking redemption and chasing perfection and really finding out that it's really about accepting and embracing everything about who you are. And there's a beauty in that. And the peacemaker in who we are is holding on to our ideals and our values and letting that guide us in our interactions. And for me, that was letting go of the hate, and just finding peace in myself and finding peace in others, and just letting it bounce off. I don't have time, I don't have space for a lot of the negativity going on, and just holding true to my own convictions and who I am. So I'm not chasing redemption. And I know that's not in a faith way, but I just mean looking at myself more critically. I'm just really clinging to everything that makes up who I am, all the goods, all the bads, and that's what makes up Bowe. And that's what I bring to the peacemaking table. And that, if that makes sense, I hope it does. But the point is that I am, all my imperfections, I'm still a really good peacemaker. Because I look at other people as human. Humans are innately gorgeous. They're beautiful people. They are flawed. That's what makes them human. And they're beautiful. And that's the only way that we make peace, is by seeing that and stop destroying it, but seeing it.
Wow.
And that's what I would say is accept who you are and accept that in others.
You're the kind of person that I wish wrote American foreign policy. I could see you working
really
for the
long.
State Department. Yeah.
Because I can't shut up.
But your perspective has been fresh, enlightening, and to really share your story from combat to peace, and it's a process. I mean, I don't know that we ever resolve it. And as I hear your story, I know that it is still a story that is unfolding in your life. And I can't wait to see what you do at 38.
It's coming up. Yeah.
Man, I have a couple of special gifts for you, Bowe.
Oh, yep.
And first, I want to thank you for your service and that you're
Proud
here
to
with
do it.
us. Thank you so much. And I have one of our cups, Covington Community Church. And I want to say this has been a church that's been making peace here for almost 90 years.
Wow.
And, man, you're only the second recipient of the cup.
Wow. Exciting.
Man. And I have something else, and these are peace coins that we've taken around the world. And one of my friends, Stan Gardner, we talked about peace on this program, he designed these coins, and it's a seed of life. And peace is about life and finding the abundance of life and the joy of it. And I want to say I look forward to the day when we no longer have to make war or spend our time, and our gold making weapons of war. And so this is a peace coin, and its symbol is the seed of life. It is connecting peace between the Abrahamic faiths, but you'll see it on everything. The symbol that's there, it is a connecting point for all the Abrahamic faiths, in particular Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And I want to say it's a place that we can meet, in peace and in life. And I want to make that a present to you. And thank you for your peace journeys. And Bowe,
Thanks.
welcome home. Thank you so much
you
for
so
the
much.
podcast. If you like this content, and Bowe is incredible, and when she leaves here, she's going to make more peace in our community and our world. And I want to say like, share, and subscribe. And thank you. Blessings. Thank you for joining our podcast.
I did write a book. Yeah. I have 2 children's books. One is called Where Are You, Mommy? And the other one is Brave Enough, Atlan and the Farm Animals. And my upcoming book is called The Immortal Witness, Dissidents Descending.
Man.
And you can find it on my website, BoweBalhoff.com.
Man, thank you. BoweBalhoff.com.
Yes.
Man.
That sounds, yeah.
No, and we'll post that up too. And so you can see
Okay.
that on our website as well. And again, we want to thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content.
Awesome.
Yeah. Bo, thank you.
No, thank you so much.